Take a quick pause. Did you know that over 90% of you watching haven't hit the subscribe button yet? If you're enjoying this video, take a second to subscribe and hit the like button. It helps us bring you more gripping stories every day. Also, we'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your city in the comments so we can see how far our stories are reaching. Your support really keeps us going. Now, let's jump back into the video. I still remember the day I met her, Ayla, with her radiant smile and eyes that seemed to hold the universe. She was the daughter of the Malik family, one of the most influential families in the city. Their name was synonymous with power, wealth, and tradition. When Ayla and I fell in love, it felt like a dream. But dreams have a way of turning into nightmares. From the moment we announced our engagement, I sensed the undercurrents. Her mother, Mrs. Malik, was a force to be reckoned with. Elegant, poised, and commanding, she had an uncanny ability to make you feel both welcomed and scrutinized. She would often say, "In our family, we uphold traditions. We expect the best." I wanted to be the best, for Ayla, for our future. The wedding was a grand affair, attended by dignitaries, celebrities, and the elite. But amidst the celebrations, I felt like a guest in my own life. The Malik estate became our home, a sprawling mansion with manicured gardens, opulent halls, and an air of cold perfection. Ayla adapted seamlessly while I struggled to find my place. Mrs. Malik's influence was omnipresent. She had opinions on everything, from the clothes I wore to the business decisions I made. "It's all about presentation," she'd say, handing me a tailored suit. Ayla, too, began to change. Our late-night talks turned into scheduled meetings. Spontaneous outings were replaced by formal dinners. I missed the woman I fell in love with. Then came the discussions about children. Mrs. Malik was insistent. "A family legacy must continue," she declared. Ayla echoed her sentiments, albeit more gently. But as months turned into years without any news, the pressure mounted. Whispers filled the halls. "Perhaps he's the problem," I overheard one day. The weight of expectation was suffocating. Amidst this turmoil, I found solace in Layla, Ayla's younger sister. She was the antithesis of the Malik household, free-spirited, artistic, and genuine. We'd share stories, laugh over shared frustrations, and find comfort in each other's company. But even this bond was viewed with suspicion. Mrs. Malik warned me, "Be careful with your affections. Appearances matter." One evening, Layla confided in me about her plans to leave the estate and pursue her passion for art abroad. She felt stifled, controlled, and yearned for freedom. I encouraged her, believing it would be the best for her. But the next morning, tragedy struck. Layla was found unconscious in her room, an apparent overdose. The household was thrown into chaos. Mrs. Malik was devastated, Ayla inconsolable. But amidst the grief, I sensed something amiss. As Layla lay in the hospital, I began to uncover secrets, letters she had written, expressing her despair, her feelings of entrapment, and hints of a plan to escape. It became evident that her overdose wasn't accidental. She had tried to end her suffering. The realization shook me to my core. Determined to understand the depth of the Malik family's control, I delved deeper. I discovered that Layla had been seeing a therapist in secret, someone she trusted. I reached out, hoping to piece together the fragments of her life. The therapist revealed that Layla felt like a pawn in her family's game, her choices dictated, her desires suppressed. She had spoken about a plan her mother had for her, a marriage alliance to strengthen the family's business ties. Layla's dreams were secondary to the family's ambitions. This revelation was a mirror to my own experiences. I, too, had become a tool in the Malik family's grand design. My business ventures were subtly influenced, my social circles curated, my autonomy eroded. Ayla, once my partner, now seemed more aligned with her mother's vision than our shared dreams. The final blow came when I discovered documents detailing a trust fund set up for our future child, a child that didn't exist. The stipulations were clear: the child would inherit a significant portion of the family's wealth, but only if raised within the Malik estate, under Mrs. Malik's guidance. It was evident that my role was to be a mere facilitator, not a father. Feeling betrayed, I confronted Ayla. She was defensive, accusing me of overreacting. It's just a precaution, she said. Mother wants the best for our future. But I saw the truth. Our marriage was a transaction, our love a facade. I decided to leave to reclaim my identity. But the Malik family's reach was extensive. My business accounts were frozen, my reputation tarnished with rumors. I was painted as unstable, ungrateful, and disloyal. Friends distanced themselves, opportunities vanished. I was isolated, a pariah. In this darkness, I found an unexpected ally, Layla. She had recovered and, like me, sought freedom. Together, we decided to expose the Malik families. The weeks after the wedding passed in a blur of formal dinners, business introductions, and constant reminders that I was now a part of a legacy. The Malik household was a monument to control. Everything had its place and every person had a role. Mine, it seemed, was to fall in line. At first, I didn't mind. I was newly married and still intoxicated by love. Ayla and I were adjusting to our new life, and though I missed the simplicity of my old apartment, I told myself I was building something better. But over time, the warmth faded. Ayla became more distant. She was no longer the spontaneous woman I fell in love with. Every conversation was shadowed by her mother's opinions. If I suggested we take a trip, she'd say, "Let me check with Mother." If I proposed a new idea for our future, like starting a small business or moving into a house of our own, it was always met with hesitation. And her mother never missed an opportunity to remind me where I stood. "You must understand, Omar," Mrs. Malik would say during one of our evening teas. "This family has worked very hard to maintain its standing. We expect discipline, responsibility, and results." Results. It became a word I heard a lot. It started innocently enough. Hints dropped during family dinners about the next generation and how the Maliks valued family. Then the hints turned into direct questions. "When are you two planning to start a family?" her mother would ask, though it never felt like a question, more like a command dressed as polite concern. Ayla, to my surprise, began pressuring me too. "We've been married a year," she said one night. "People are starting to talk. My mother thinks we should see a fertility specialist." I was stunned. We hadn't even tried properly. But in this house, it wasn't about love or timing. It was about control, about image, about legacy. We went to a doctor, then another, then another. Everything came back fine, but Ayla wasn't satisfied. Or maybe it wasn't her, it was her mother, whispering from behind silk curtains and gold-rimmed teacups. I started to feel like a project, a means to an end. Even in the smallest ways, I was being reshaped. My wardrobe was replaced with suits chosen by Mrs. Malik's personal tailor. My friends, those from my humble upbringing, were subtly but firmly pushed out of my life. I was urged to network with more appropriate company. They said it was for my benefit, but I began to wonder who I was benefiting. I tried to talk to Ayla about it once. "We've changed," I said gently, sitting beside her in the vast, silent bedroom we barely touched anymore. "You don't laugh like you used to. You don't talk to me like before." She looked at me like I was speaking another language. "We're adults now. We have responsibilities. This isn't about being happy all the time, Omar. It's about building a future." "But whose future?" I asked. She didn't answer. Then came the inheritance talk. Mrs. Malik called a family meeting, a formal one, with papers and an attorney, and long-winded speeches about family assets. I was told that should Ayla and I have a child, a significant trust would be placed in our names. But if not, well, things would be different. I sat at the polished table listening to the terms like I was hearing a contract being read aloud. Not about love or family, but business. And somewhere in the middle of it all, I realized I wasn't a husband. I was an investment. The pressure mounted. Fertility treatments, endless consultations, even whispers of surrogacy from Ayla's aunt, who always smiled like she knew something I didn't. I began to feel like my body, my marriage, my entire identity was under constant scrutiny. Then came the breaking point. Ayla's younger sister, Zara, moved in temporarily after a personal crisis. She was different, sharp-tongued, rebellious, and unwilling to play the Malik family game. I liked her honesty. She saw through the masks, and I could tell she pitied me. One night, we ended up talking in the kitchen long after everyone else had gone to bed. I was venting, maybe too much, but she listened. "You're not crazy, Omar," she said. "This family, it eats people alive. My mother controls everything, and Ayla, she's too far gone to even notice." I didn't know what to say. It felt both comforting and terrifying to be seen so clearly. But then something happened that shattered everything. Zara disappeared. It was sudden. One day she was there, moody and opinionated, and the next, gone. No note, no explanation. Mrs. Malik said she had gone on a retreat. Ayla didn't seem surprised. No one wanted to talk about it, but I didn't believe them. I tried calling her. Her phone was off. I messaged her on social media, nothing. I even reached out to a cousin of hers who seemed shocked to learn she'd left town. I started digging quietly, and the more I looked, the stranger things got. Security footage from the estate was missing for the night she left. Zara's car was still in the garage, untouched. Even her suitcase was still in the guest room closet. I confronted Ayla. She looked nervous. "Stop digging, Omar," she said, voice shaking. "Just leave it alone." "Why? What happened to your sister?" "She's fine," she said, but her eyes betrayed her. "Just, please don't get involved." But I couldn't let it go. That night, I snuck into the study, Mrs. Malik's private office. I knew the risks. I knew if I got caught, there'd be no turning back. But I had to know. And what I found? There was a folder, labeled with Zara's name. Inside were printed emails, photos, reports, and a document that chilled me to my core. A signed agreement stating that Zara had voluntarily admitted herself into a private wellness facility. But the signature? It didn't look right. Worse, there were notes in the margins, written in Mrs. Malik's tidy handwriting, about removing the problem, media risk, and containment. I stared at the papers, heart pounding, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. It was like peeling back a curtain and finding something rotten, something dangerous beneath. I left the study shaken, unsure of what to do next. But one thing was clear: this family had secrets, and I was in far deeper than I ever imagined. The following days felt like I was walking on a tightrope, strung so tightly that one wrong step could send me crashing down. I couldn't stop thinking about Zara. What had happened to her? Why was she being kept away? The documents I had found kept replaying in my mind, their cold, clinical language eating away at me. There was no way I could just forget about it. This wasn't some minor family drama. Something deeply troubling was going on. I tried to talk to Ayla, but she was becoming more distant. Every time I brought up Zara, her face would harden, her eyes darting nervously. "I told you already," she said, voice tight with stress. "Zara's fine, she just needs some space." But I knew she was lying. I could feel it in my bones. I became obsessed with uncovering the truth. It wasn't just for Zara anymore, it was for me. What kind of marriage had I stepped into? Was I just another pawn in a game I didn't even understand? The more I looked into the family's past, the more I realized that everything was controlled by her mother, by the wealth, by the need for perfection. The Maliks weren't just powerful in business, they were powerful in the way they held people's lives in their hands. But I wasn't just fighting against them. I was fighting against Ayla too. My wife, the woman I had married, seemed to be disappearing before my eyes. She wasn't the woman I had fallen in love with anymore. She was a shadow, a reflection of her mother's coldness. I had tried to tell myself that she still loved me, but the cracks in our relationship were widening by the day. One evening, I came home from work early. I didn't expect to find Ayla in the living room. The house was unusually quiet. I walked in to find her sitting in front of the fireplace, staring at the flames with an intensity that made my stomach churn. She didn't hear me at first, and when she did, she didn't even look up. "Ayla?" I called, voice trembling. She turned slowly, her eyes hollow. She had changed so much it was hard to recognize her. There was no warmth left in her gaze, only cold indifference. "I think we need to talk," I said, stepping toward her cautiously. She nodded slowly, as if she had been waiting for this moment. "I know what you've been doing. she said, her voice calm but edged with something darker. I know you've been snooping. You've been asking too many questions. I froze, heart hammering. Ayla, I'm trying to understand. What happened to Zara? What's going on with this family? Her face twisted for a moment, the facade cracking for just a second. It's not what you think, she whispered, almost as if to herself. I had no choice. What do you mean? No choice about what? She shook her head, her eyes watering. Omar, I'm not the person you think I am. I never was. I couldn't breathe. What are you talking about? The silence stretched between us, thick with years of unspoken truths. Finally, she stood up, her expression unreadable. Zara wasn't the only one who was a problem. You've been a problem too. I blinked, confused. What? You didn't fit in, she continued, her voice trembling now. My family? They don't want you here, Omar. They never did. I never wanted you to find out, but I couldn't keep lying anymore. I took a step back, the weight of her words sinking in. What do you mean? You wanted me here, didn't you? You married me. No, she whispered, barely audible. I married you because I had no choice. I stared at her, stunned. What are you talking about? She took a deep breath, and for the first time in months, I saw the woman I had fallen in love with. The Maliks have their ways of getting what they want, Omar. And when my mother decided it was time for me to settle down, she chose you. She thought you were perfect for the family, good enough to carry the name, but not too ambitious to disrupt the balance. I tried to fight it, but she had already made up her mind. I didn't know what else to do, so I went along with it. I felt like the ground was slipping beneath my feet. I wanted to scream, but the words wouldn't come. She continued, her voice shaking. But then things changed. I started to feel trapped, and I didn't know how to get out. Trapped? I asked, almost unable to believe what I was hearing. By me? By us? No, she said quickly. Not by you, but by them, by the family, by the expectations. And when Zara started asking too many questions, when she started becoming a problem, my mother took care of it, the same way she's always taken care of things. I felt a wave of nausea. You mean you knew? You knew what was happening to her? Ayla's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't speak for a long time. When she finally did, her voice was almost a whisper. I couldn't stop it. I couldn't change anything. I thought that if I played along, if I did what they wanted, maybe they would leave us alone, but now, I don't know if I can keep pretending anymore. It hit me then. Everything. All the manipulation, all the control, all the games. This wasn't just about me, about Ayla, or even about Zara. This was about power. It was about maintaining control over everyone and everything. And I had been too blind to see it until now. The room was suffocating. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Ayla reached out, her hand trembling as she tried to touch my arm. Omar, I never wanted this. But I can't do this anymore. We can't. I pulled away, the pain of it all too much. You've already done it, Ayla, I said, voice breaking. You've already chosen. She stood there watching me, her expression filled with regret. But it was too late. I couldn't go back. Not now. Not after everything. I turned and left the room, not knowing where I was going or how I was going to get through this. But I knew one thing, everything had changed, and now there was no turning back. The days that followed felt like I was drifting through a nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. Every moment, every conversation felt like a trap, and I was caught in the center of it. I could no longer pretend to live the life I had once envisioned. The dreams I had about building a future with Ayla, about creating something of our own, those dreams had been shattered, turned into something dark and suffocating. I couldn't bring myself to talk to her after that night. I couldn't look her in the eye. The woman I had once loved was gone, replaced by someone who had become a stranger to me, wrapped up in lies and secrets, trapped in a world that I had never asked to be part of. I thought about leaving, just walking away and starting over. But there was something deep inside me that stopped me every time. Maybe it was the remnants of love I still felt for her. Maybe it was the guilt of everything I hadn't done, of everything I had allowed to happen. But something kept me tethered, even when every part of me screamed to run. A few days later, I found myself in my study, the room where I had once felt at peace, where I had tried to escape the growing tension in the house. But it felt different now, empty, cold. The documents I had found, the ones that hinted at the family's dark secrets, still lay scattered across my desk. I couldn't stop looking at them. The more I read, the more I uncovered. There were contracts, business deals, even letters detailing plans for controlling the family's wealth and power. It was clear now that this wasn't just about the inheritance or about Zara. It was about control. It was about power. It was about everything being manipulated behind closed doors. I'd been blind to it all. I had thought I was marrying into a family of power and prestige, but now I saw that I had become nothing more than a pawn in their game. And Ayla? She wasn't a victim. She was complicit. She had played her part, as much a part of the manipulation as her mother, as her father. The revelation hurt more than anything. It cut deeper than any betrayal. It wasn't just that she had lied to me. It was that she had known all along and hadn't even tried to protect me from the storm brewing around us. I spent hours in that study trying to piece everything together, but the more I read, the more hopeless I became. There were too many lies, too many layers. Every time I thought I understood one part, another piece of the puzzle would be revealed, deeper and darker than the last. And then there were the phone calls. The late-night calls that Ayla would make, her voice low, whispering in a language I couldn't understand. Every time I asked her who she was speaking to, she would brush it off with a vague answer or change the subject. But I knew it wasn't just business calls. I knew that there was something sinister happening, something that Ayla was hiding from me. I had to confront her. I had to know the truth, even if it meant facing the painful reality of what I had married into. That night, I waited for her in the living room. She came in around midnight, her face weary, her eyes red as though she hadn't slept in days. When she saw me sitting in the dark, her face faltered. She had been avoiding me, but she couldn't avoid me forever. I didn't say anything at first. I just looked at her, trying to read her expression, trying to understand who she had become. Finally, she spoke, her voice quiet. "What are you doing here?" "I need to know the truth," I said, my voice steady, but betraying the anger that simmered just below the surface. "Who were you talking to on the phone? What's really going on, Ayla?" She hesitated, then slowly sat down across from me, her shoulders sagging as if the weight of it all was too much to bear. "I can't keep doing this. I can't keep pretending." "Pretending? Pretending to be what?" I pressed. "A loving wife? A part of this family?" She looked down, not meeting my gaze. "I've never been a part of this family, Omar. Not really. I was never the daughter they wanted me to be. I wasn't enough for them. That's why I married you. You were my escape." I froze, the words she said hitting me like a punch to the gut. "Escape?" I whispered. "You used me to escape your family?" Ayla's eyes welled up with tears and she nodded slowly. "I thought I could build a life with you, but I was wrong. You don't understand the pressure, Omar. You don't understand what it's like to live in a family that controls everything, their wealth, their name, their legacy. You never stood a chance." The pain in her words hit me harder than I expected. There was no anger in her voice, just a deep sadness. A sadness I could feel radiating from her, like a wall of glass between us. She had been trapped in a gilded cage, a prisoner to her family's expectations, and I had been too blind to see it. I shook my head in disbelief. "And Zara? What about her? You didn't just abandon your sister, Ayla. You let them take her away and you did nothing." She flinched at the mention of Zara, her hands trembling. "I tried to help her, I really did, but I couldn't. They had their ways. They threatened me. They threatened everything I cared about. I was too scared to stand up to them." The truth was unraveling, and I didn't know if I could handle it. I didn't know if I could even stand to look at her anymore. I stood up, pacing the room. "This isn't just about you, Ayla. You've let me fall into a trap I can't get out of. I thought we were building something together, but it was all a lie." She stood too, reaching out to me. "Please, Omar, please understand. I never wanted this. I never wanted to hurt you. I couldn't hear her anymore. The tears that I had held back for so long threatened to break free, but I wouldn't let them. I couldn't let her see how much she had destroyed me. You should have told me the truth from the beginning, I said, voice shaking with emotion. You should have told me everything. She nodded, tears falling freely now. I know, but I was too scared. Too caught up in the web they've created. I turned away, wiping my face. The air in the room felt suffocating, the walls closing in on me. This was the woman I had married, the woman I thought I knew. But now, everything I thought I understood had been turned upside down. As I walked toward the door, I heard Ayla call out, but I didn't stop. I never wanted to lose you, Omar. I never wanted any of this to happen. I didn't turn back. I couldn't. Because at that moment, I realized something far more terrifying than any of the family secrets or betrayals I had uncovered. I was already lost.